World Statistics Day is celebrated on October 20th every 5 years to acknowledge the importance of data authenticity and credibility across the globe. This day was created by the United Nations to recognize the importance of collecting, analyzing, and disseminating data. Since its inception in 2010, this special day has become an annual event celebrated around the world with various activities that promote better understanding and use of statistics. It is a great opportunity for everyone to learn more about how we can use data to make informed decisions and create positive change in our communities. One may ask why we need statistics. What importance is data to our collective growth and development as a people? To answer these questions and more, it is important to note that statistics are used to make informed decisions. Accurate and up-to-date data is essential for making well-informed decisions. Statistics can help us to better understand the complex world that we live in and allowing us to identify problems and develop strategies to address them. By taking into account our past experiences as well as current information, statisticians can provide invaluable insight that will not be possible without their expertise. Statistics help us understand global trends. By analyzing data from different countries, we can gain a clearer picture of how various social, economic, or environmental factors are impacting our planet. This helps shed light on issues that may not be immediately visible in our own backyards. The availability of this kind of data also allows us to track changes over time and measure progress towards goals such as reducing poverty or achieving gender equality. Statistics provide useful insight into human behavior. By looking at statistics, we can gain invaluable insight into why people act the way they do, whether it's consumer spending habits or voting patterns. Analyzing statistical data gives us the opportunity to better understand ourselves and the societies we live in. Knowing what shapes our behavior can help us make more informed choices and put us in a better position to create positive change. Statistics critical to proper government planning and solving problems. Government at all levels need right data to be able to realistically assess the situation, analyze reach and depth of problems, and thus prefer solution. Budgeting for whatever event or project within and outside government cannot be adequately done without first having the right data. Suffice to say that for development, government programs, aid, and other social-oriented programs to succeed, investment must be made to guarantee availability of quality data information.
It's the World Statistics Day today, and one would first of all ask, what's our business with statistics? How does that affect the price of grain in Nigerian markets? But of course, if you would listen closely to that report that we just brought to you in commemoration of today's celebration, you will know that statistics is very, very important in the front line of policy formulation and policy evaluation. Of course, this is Rise and Shine, and we are coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Nigeria. Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Wow, Akwa Ibom has become the capital of.
Maybe you're speaking in prophetic declaration.
That's like new. That's. I don't even know what. I have to leave you on this. Well, of course. Good morning and thanks for joining us. The name is Uyai Anieka, and we are delighted to be here to do this with you today.
And I am Francis Oyima. Hey, that's glad to have you joined us. Of course, it's Friday edition, and we're excited.
Friday.
Precious Friday. Some people can't wait to get home
Precious
and just stretch out. Do you have a special event for the weekend? It's already, it's already weekend. You have some special things planned out.
I got no words for you, brah.
Okay, no problem. I know that some of us are already excited. I mean, a lot of weddings. I know that I'm on a wedding train, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Ooh, that's a new one.
This Saturday is going to be fun. But of course, it's also there for us to talk Nigeria as always and rise and shine. And we'll always encourage you to join our social media platform, the online growing community, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTVLive.ng. And yes, and rise and shine, we don't just talk Nigeria, we talk Africa and the world, because we are all interconnected, and everything happening in one continent has a way of affecting the things happening in another continent across the world. Of course, today we will be looking at a lot of happenings across the world, starting with Nigeria, of course, where the EU has said that Nigeria is a big beneficiary when it comes to education mobility. We'll also be touching light on the Police Service Commission, speaking about the hiring or recruitment of repentant thugs in the fight for crime, or in the fight against crime. Of course, we'll also see the fuel queues that has returned to the nation across some state, and the argument and disagreement between NNPC and, of course, independent marketers over the long queues across some states of the Federation. Developing stories, Atiku Abubakar's case. Finally, the Supreme Court has fixed a date to hear the case of the new evidences that Atiku Abubakar is bringing up against President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Of course, we're also looking at the fact that Gabon junta has turned down the presidential salary that should have accrued to him as a measure of making sure that the country's infrastructural development and other indices are given topmost priority. We'll also be looking at the comments coming from the new EFCC chair who has taken over office. Of course, during his screening, he did say Nigeria has lost over 2.9 trillion naira when you're talking about procurement scam. And that goes back to some of the questions that have been raised over padding of budget in ministries, departments, and agencies of government. Some issues that have been raised with the illegality surrounding procurement in government quarters. These are some of the things we'll be bringing you with this morning.
Of course, that's a rundown of the conversations that we have this morning for you. Please do well to be a part of the conversation. Let's get to know your thoughts. Let's have your contributions. You can take advantage of the social media platforms displayed on your screen, and or the phone lines that will be displayed on your screen. Of course, let's know what you think about some of these issues that we have on the platform this morning. I think for me, the biggest news this morning will be the fact that the interim president of Gabon has decided that he is not going to take presidential salaries. He's just going to stick to that, which he receives for being, a commander in the forces. And we also see the fact that he has cut down even salaries for, certain politicians in the country and all kinds of spendings. And I think for me that this is a very exemplary step that was taken by Oligui Nguema at this time, the Gabon leader. And one will just quickly want to run through and ask that Nigerian leaders should do the same thing. Of course, we've been clamoring of recent for the over 50% back slash on the salaries of lawmakers in Nigeria, but that seems to be something that we're only hearing in the ear. But to see that this is like for me the second time I'm hearing an African country actually take these particular steps. So it's more like these people are they are interpreting the terms that their nation is living in, and they are making sure that whatever stone that they will not leave it unturned to make sure that things can stabilize. And I think one of the biggest arguments with regards to this action by Oligui Nguema is the fact that the Gabonese people seem to have lost a lot of confidence in the leadership of the country in times past. Of course, it was led by Ali Bongo until he was recently ousted by, the military in the country, and then Oligui Nguema was put in charge. So it's more like people are seeing this, gesture put forward by the president, the interim president at this time, as just something to reinstate the confidence of the people on the government. If he's doing this, we can imagine that a lot more people are going to relax and think of him as one who wants to serve the people. But this is, I think, first of all, this is a clear-cut instruction and a clear-cut, example that Gabon and its leader is given to the rest of the world. Is it possible for us to consider these kinds of slash in our country, especially Nigeria?
Well, definitely, it will be a step that Nigerians will truly appreciate. When you look at the cost of governance, or the cost of social spending, or the cost of maintaining the few persons who are within the corridors of power, a lot of questions keep coming up. Why can't we get to the point where we actually slash down on the emoluments that these people take home while in office, and even after they must have left office, that comes to them as pension? If we get to a point in Nigeria where the 10th National Assembly, the House of Rep, are able to put aside their personal interests, put aside their personal aggrandizement, and of course prioritize the growth, development, advancement, and transformation of Nigerians and Nigeria, then we can get to that point where we see a law that is being made to normalize cutting cost of governance, to normalize reducing the salaries of politicians, and even constitutionalizing or institutionalizing civil service, or making politics seems like civil service, where politicians are graded and they are paid based on their grades. That to a large extent would change the narrative for Nigeria. That to a large extent would mean that only technocrats, only service-oriented leaders will get involved in politics. Only people who are coming to contribute their quota to reposition the nation, to reposition the state, to reposition the local government areas will be venturing into politics, and not people who see politics as a means to an end, as a means to amass wealth at the detriment of the Nigerian people, the constituents who have elected them to represent them. It's a good thing that Gwema has taken, and that is an exemplary leadership, being put out there. I know a lot of people will have issues with the fact that, it's coming from a junta who, as far as the world powers are concerned, as far as constitutions are concerned, illegally took over power. But of course, when you look at the reasons these military juntas have given over time, from Mali to Burkina Faso, Gabon, and of course, the basic focus has always been that they want to put an end to the corruption, to the wastage, to the fraud that has happened, to the pilfering from the public treasury, to the fact that there is so much resources, blessings, but yet it is not commensurate with the level of infrastructural development and with the level of the living standard of the people across board. So it's a good step, and truth be told, we do hope we get to that point in Nigeria where our politicians get to understand that the primary focus should be and must be the people.
Primary focus must be the people. We are going to move on to our very, very first flash story this morning. Of course, we're seeing the European Union saying that Nigeria is a big beneficiary of education mobility. Of course, it was sometime last year that a video was making a round about how the United Kingdom was going to begin to shut out students from being able to come in, more like you come in with your student visa, but then you're coming in with 5 more family members. It was such a brawl at that time, but we're still seeing that the European Union is saying that Nigeria is the biggest is a big beneficiary of education mobility. So more like with this kind of information now, when you look at it, you would want to hold the government of the day responsible. Where's all the money that is churned out by the NGOs? What do they use it for? And what investments do these things see? We also see that the EU will support Nigeria to achieve enhanced infrastructure connectivity, including transport, energy, and digital works. These are some of the things that we see that the European Union is saying that Nigeria has benefited from. About 2,000 Nigerians have been said to have received these different scholarships in the last year.
Well, of course, we know that most Nigerians who travel outside the shores of Nigeria for educational purposes are as a result of scholarship. and those scholarships are fully funded. And when you look at the percentage and the rate at which Nigerians are benefiting, you definitely know it is not just about the fact that we are the most populous nation in Africa, but also the fact that Nigerians are very resilient, Nigerians are very determined, Nigerians are very forward-thinking people and outgoing people. There's literally no day you won't find young people on the internet surfing for possible scholarship opportunities, and you literally can see it through a week without seeing some level of opportunity popping up on your phone. Some legit, others a way of scamming people. But of course, when you sift through, filter through the different informations that come, you definitely get to access the real one. And Nigerians have benefited greatly a lot from this. But of course, one will also ask, as we have benefited, what is the commensurate return on investment that we are having as a people or as a country? Apart from our people going outside the shores of Nigeria to study, we're also having the fact that when people are done studying, they don't want to come back to Nigeria. And that is owing to a lot of things. You're talking about poor environment, the poor governance system in the country. You're talking about the fact that these guys will tell you, why should I come back to the country when I am somewhere that I am far better of? I am better treated. There is a better work environment. There is an opportunity for me to advance in my career. There is a whole lot of things put in place for me. If I'm paying for a social service, if I'm paying for utility bills, then I know that I'm paying for what I've consumed or what I'm consuming. I'm not being so changed. And if there is an issue between me and my service provider, I know where to channel my complaints and I know how to get my justice being served. But back here in Nigeria, it is a complete different story. Just yesterday, I got very disturbing stories how communities that have just NEPA poles or public power poles and electricity cables connected to people's houses are not being given light, but yet people are being forced to pay NEPA bills or utility bills every other month. They just flash light once in a blue moon one day, and then the next time you get to see the officials coming out to knock on the door for that. And of course, the interior villages, when you look at the cost of buying wires these days, nobody would want you to come and cut their wires and carry it away. And even when we know that it's illegal for these electricity distribution companies to walk into people's houses and cut people's wires without pre-notice, we should, of course, spend a couple of months by the laws, protecting the rights of Nigerians. We see these service providers still going against the law, and yet nothing is being done about it. So these are some of the concerns that makes Nigerians who travel outside the shores of the country not come back. But as far as Nigerians are concerned, I think it's a great thing to know that we are still, benefiting a great deal from sponsorship and funding from outside the shores of the country. Of course, the EU has also said they will support the rollout of the 5G in Nigeria as part of efforts to support the digital economy. And they said they're working on a potential loan to support small and medium enterprises in digital and print sector. Now, this also goes down to the renewed hope agenda and the present conversations by the Ahmed Bola Tinubu's-led administration to prioritize investment in the areas of digital economy, the technology space, innovation, and everything that has to do with the internet.
Of course, everything that has to do with the internet, we are looking at different levels of cooperation between the EU rather, I beg your pardon, and Nigeria, so that we can also just go beyond education and see how other sectors will be grossly impacted by the things that these international bodies do in Nigeria. But we'll move on from there. We also see the fact that Police Commission has explained its recruitment of repentant talks to fight crime in the country. Of course, there was a trending photo of a certain young man who was said to have been arrested for crimes in the state here in Nigeria. And the next thing, by the time people turned, they saw pictures of him being kitted, as a member of the Nigerian police force. And people are wondering, is it the same people that have, caused mayhem in the environment that we're also given the power to come and, keep us safe? But that's a very big issue this morning that we need to look into.
Well, it's laughable that in a country where we have over 200 million plus and the greatest category of those, or the biggest demographic happens to be the youth. We are having, level-headed youths, people who can actually, give to the growth and advancement of Nigeria, not being taken care of. Now, when you look at the situation rising, already the Nigerian police force have always been in an issue where Nigerians have concerns with them. One of such concerns being the fact that criminal elements are being recruited into the Nigerian police force, and these criminal elements, do not by any way seem to bring down the image of the Nigerian police force. So you're looking at thugs, people who have been used to violence, people who are used to illegality, criminal activities, and then you bring them in, and then you give them the legal backing, you give them the constitutional backing. You're only setting another set of time bombs that is going to explode in the country. Because no matter how much, the first question that you ask is, how much time did it take to train these people for us to know that you have been able to reconfigure their mindset and their thinking? Now, if you've not spent time to train them, what is the guarantee that these people are not still going to do what they used to do using the arm of government, the authority that the government has given them to them? So it is one thing for you to say, it's just like the conversation about bringing repentant, terrorists into the military, which of course many security experts have said this is the reason why we're having a lot of information being, filtering out to the terrorists, and then they're using it to plant preemptive attack on armed forces. So it's a terrible situation. Nigerians would hope that the Nigerian Police Service Commission would have thought better, would have known even best to recruit Nigerians who are actually willing, because you can't tell us that there are no willing, able-bodied Nigerians who are youths who are willing to join the Nigerian police force, who do not have criminal records, who do not have any history of criminal activities. So these are grave concerns, and unfortunately it is happening. But Nigerians would wish that this can be reversed, and these elements that have been recruited into the Nigerian police force are taken out.
We do hope that this is taken up, because like you said, one of the key things that is going to affect us is the fact that there's an introduction of infiltration into the guard. You do not know, at the end of the day, you start asking who sabotaged us, who did you employ? And then it's more like you're employing and putting them all in the the front and the team that is going to tackle insecurity in the areas that they are. But it's a big, we're not also ruling out that yes, there can be an opportunity to use these persons as rehabilitated people back into the society, but for the society's good. But that still leaves us ground to painstakingly look at the pros and cons of allowing this to happen in the very first place.
Well, it's a worrisome situation. I know that some Nigerians will say, okay, it can actually also work. But when you're saying it can actually also work, let's look at the fact that these people, within their dark days, have connections, they have contact. And these connections might definitely reach out to use them as means to evade, the real police officials. Now, when you're talking about high-level collaborations between criminals and people who have been entrusted with the security of Nigerians, it comes as a result of things like this. Now, somebody is a cultist and you're recruiting that person into the armed forces. It's definitely going to use the armed forces as a cover-up for cult activities. Somebody is a criminal and you're recruiting that criminal into the armed forces. It's definitely going to use that as a cover-up. Now, we cannot forget in a hurry in this country that we have seen top-ranking security personnel being, found wanting in terms of their involvement with criminal activities, involvement with drugs pushing, involvement with, different anti-people, lifestyle. Now, if people who were not already compromised before they joined the police force or they joined the Nigerian armed forces have been found wanting after years of being in the force, what will happen to people who already have an history with criminal element, people who are already, used to doing things certain way? It's like calling a madman and giving a madman a weapon. What do you think is going to happen? He's a madman. He doesn't understand what is happening, and now you're giving him a weapon. So the madman is going to go haywire with the weapons, not knowing what is happening, whether he knows what is happening or doesn't know what is happening. So it's a dicey situation. These are not situations, these are not stories, these are not moves that institutions of government just sit without doing thorough investigation, without doing thorough planning, without thinking out carefully the pros and cons of these decisions before implementing them.
Well, we do hope that the the Nigerian Police Force and the Police Commission know exactly what they are doing with regards to this, and how Nigerians are even going to embrace this is another issue entirely. But then let's move. We have begun to hear that fuel queues are mounting up in Lagos and some other parts of the country. Now we believe that this is statement from. Okay, we see the fact that the NNPC is cautioning against panic buying, and confirms 30-day sufficiency. When we are talking about the fact that people just will now buy in panic mode, try to store up all the fuel that they can against the season. But if NNPC is saying we have 30 days worth of sufficient product, what then exactly is the problem? I know there was, the excuse earlier in the week of the inability of the truck drivers to commit these commodities from one place to the other. But as we are, getting closer, inching closer to the holidays, it's really, really important that the NNPCL settles what exactly the problem is with regards to fuel sufficiency and availability in the country.
Well, fuel has been one very crazy situation. Remember, just before we got to October, July, August, September, we already saw, a bickering between independent marketers and the NNPCL. This is like a yearly thing. It's already October. Before you know it is November. Before you know it is December. And then we're already seeing issues. When the NNPC come out to say we have enough fuel to last for 30 days, between now and November, 30 days. What happens after November? We're going to have a different ballgame, a different story, a different narrative coming. So I think Nigerians are tired of being fed the same old story year in, year out. And that goes back to the same conversation. What is Mele Kyari doing on the seat as the NNPC chairman when year in, year out, we keep having the same level of crisis? In fact, it seems like every year it takes an interesting turn, it takes an interesting twist. It gets worse by the years. And yet there is somebody who is saddled with the responsibility to turn the narrative around, who absolutely doesn't seem to be doing anything, doesn't seem to know his way around what needs to be done. And then we see a leadership that is saying we are coming to change the narrative for the Nigerian people. We are pro-Nigerians and we want Nigerians to stop suffering. And yet, you are not putting your feet down to take those drastic measures that will change the narrative around. The NNPC needs to understand that Nigerians are tired of always having to panic buy when it comes to festivities. When it comes to the Christmas season, Nigerians are tired of always having higher cost of living because of the inability and the ineptitude on the part of leaders who should have been forward-thinking enough to proffer solutions long before it gets to that point. Now, we're going to have a situation, if we are not careful, that people might not even be able to travel. Like, we might be having triple the number of people who couldn't travel last year, because now you're talking about high level of inflation. You're talking about the highest in the longest time that we've witnessed in this country, probably in the last 10 years. We've never seen dollar grow this much to about 1,200, 1,000, almost getting to 1,500 to a dollar. So how are people going to survive?
It's just very, very pitiable at this time. We need to see how, and like we continue to say, petrol in this country is something that the whole economy of the nation is dependent on it. The more expensive it becomes, the greater ripple effect on everything else that is happening all around us. But let's see what the NNPC can do. Let us see what Mele Kyari can do. Like it's been rightly said, maybe the federal government will have to shake up the leadership of the Central Bank of Nigeria just a little bit, so that they can introduce new energy and productivity with regards to do we even have this commodity available in the country? Why is it delaying to get to the south or get to the north? Hence the prices that we are seeing. These are things that the agency must begin to consider and do very, very strongly. But yes, of course, we are still in the season of having conversations about election tribunals. It seems not to be going away anytime soon. State governments are still some state governments are yet to declare who their, candidates from the tribunal is. But what we are seeing here is the fact that the Supreme Court has, fixed a date to hear against Tinubu. That should be Atiku Abubakar's suit against Tinubu. Do you see that the Supreme Court has fixed a date for that to take place?
Well, of course, the Supreme Court has fixed Monday. It's been a long time coming. Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar have been in each other's throat. The certificate forgery saga, the reactions from CSU, and the claims by Atiku Abubakar and his team of legal practitioners. Of course, the comment coming from President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's legal team. We saw that the president is asking the court to not accept the evidences, put forward by Atiku Abubakar. Atiku Abubakar, on the other hand, is asking the court to, knock out technicalities that has been used by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's legal team to ensure that, the case is being trashed out and the new evidences are being rejected by the court. But this conversation has always been the same. What is the court going to do at the end of the day? It is not what Ahmed Bola Tinubu's legal team wants. Neither is it going to be what the legal team of Atiku Abubakar are also requesting that is going to happen. It is going to be the final verdict of the court against the different prayers that has been brought before the court by the respective people involved in the case. Talking about Atiku Abubakar and Ahmed Bola Tinubu, both personalities, very high-ranking member of the society, all seeking for justice. Atiku Abubakar still believes that the mandate that Ahmed Bola Tinubu he's having was given to him. Of course, we also see a lot of issues, surrounding that issue and conversations. But one thing is certain, that at the end of the day, it is only the Supreme Court, who is going to determine what the end of this verdict will be. And one would say Nigerians need to brace up for anything. I know there have been a lot of conversations for Nigerians to hold the judiciary accountable. There's also been a lot of conversations for the judiciary to know that at this point in time, it is a time bomb, and they need to holistically look into this issue in order to avert any possibility of breakdown of law and order, in order to restore the confidence of Nigerians and the Nigerian judiciary. Monday 23rd is just around the corner, and we wait to see how the case is going to play out within the time frame that is going to be heard in court.
Definitely, fingers crossed. But one of the biggest questions that we're asking is that at this time is that hope, Mr. President is allowing the Supreme Court to take that decision on their own. I mean, I think I was reading an article, yesterday or 2 days ago, and then the person is saying, when we see the president's team, suggesting, oh, this cannot be tendered as an evidence in the court, is it in your place to be able to say, you allow the Supreme Court to be able to say, oh, we will take this or will not take this? And this still feels like some form of getting the public opinion to be able to give a verdict. But if we see that this date is here, and then the appeal is going to be done against President Tinubu, let's see what the results will uphold. And for the likes of Atiku Abubakar, who have such strong faith and still pushing for what he believes is justice, and then we are here for it, and we are here to see what exactly is going to happen. And we do also expect that the judges of the Supreme Court will be as impartial as possible and make sure that they are duly evaluating the real issues on the table. But of course, we'll move on from there. The new EFCC chair says Nigeria lost 2.9 trillion naira with regards to procurement skirmishes in the system. So, I mean, someone is padding the budget here, and then the new leadership has found out that we have lost revenue to the tune of 2.9 trillion naira.
Well, 2.9 trillion naira ain't no joke. It's no small amount of money, and losing that to procurement scam, procurement fraud is a serious concern. But one will ask, now, didn't Rashid Bawa do his due diligence? Was he not doing investigations? Was he not looking to the government covers to see exactly what it is was going on there? We are seeing the new EFCC chairman that was just confirmed yesterday, coming out to tell Nigerians this much. It raises a whole lot of questions, and possibly a lot of conversations also about the fact that Bawa is currently being investigated about abuse of power and other issues that were petitioned against him during his stay and tenure as the EFCC chair. But then it also raises concern. How did we get to where we are today? Because when you're talking about procurement within government coffers, it means it is happening within the top-ranking members of the society. It is not just the average civil servant who is involved in procurement. Procurement are done on the offices of the top-ranking members within the cadre of the civil service. I know that in my short time within government employ and bidding for contract, before you get to the procurement department, there are like cadres and cadres and cadres, and there are different people that you need to, different processes that you need to go through, from the bidding process to actually, being given the contract, and then all of the things that happen. Even when you're delivering as a contractor, you're delivering to a government establishment, you definitely also pass through those scenarios where different people from different departments who are saddled with the responsibility to procure for their respective institutions would gather to actually test the quality. But then you get to ask, how is it that we test qualities and then the qualities are compromised? How is it that we have so much departments, so many departments involved in the procurement processes, and yet we're still seeing money being siphoned in the process of procuring things for government? So it's a lot of issues. One would hope and expect that we are not just hearing from the EFCC, the new EFCC chairman of the first time, that is not just talking about these in the screening, that is going to tell Nigerians the nearest possible time, these are the people who actually, contributed to this amount of money that I mentioned, and we've been able to retrieve these, we've been able to prosecute these, and this is the stand that we are at the moment.
Well, we need to see how that will be done. Of course, we're intending to put his fingers together and, discover more of this. When we say that procurement fraud is going on, of course, Mr. Lukoyede said, that these issues have been pending. And then I think another thing that stands out is the fact that he said these particular things when he was being screened for, that position of chairmanship. Do not also forget that in some quarters there is controversy as to whether or not, he is fit, to be the EFCC, boss at this time. There's been a lot of questions, but like he said, it's not in coming in with, a lot more rigor. We have found this, we have found that. All of the monies that you found, where is the money and what has the federal government done? Most Nigerians would also believe that EFCC can serve as that kind of watch also to the federal government to make sure that the federal government is investing wisely, especially where we are looking at repatriation of looted funds and all of that. Now, what is going to be the new face of EFCC in Nigeria with the leadership of Olukoyede at the helms of affairs? Now, he's already saying that more investigation is going to be done to ascertain where 2.9 trillion naira went to and what exactly it was used for. But I think this will be where Nigerians can say to, this new EFCC boss, welcome on board. Let's see, what kinds of activities will be done with this agency at this time, under his leadership. And I mean, remember that, the president had removed the former EFCC boss just a few days into coming into office. Now that you have a new EFCC boss, is the face and the fight of corruption going to change in this administration and for this country?
It's a big question. Will it change? It goes back to the political will on the part of our President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. We have a difference in the narrative of how anti-graft war is being fought. It is still going back to, the commitment on the part of the new EFCC chair and that of Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Let's not forget in a hurry, the EFCC chair is answerable to the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And oftentimes security experts, oftentimes policy analysts, oftentimes civil society organizations will tell you the institutions of a country is as strong as the man at the helms of affairs. They are as fair, they are as transparent, they are as just, they are as committed as the man at the helms of affairs. So if Ahmed Bola Tinubu's commitment and resolve to fight crime, to fight, fraud, to fight pilfering from the public treasury is strong, then we're going to see the EFCC standing strong. We're going to see a lot more conviction, not just for the common average Nigerians. I think in the most recent times, Nigerian will tell you EFCC is synonymous with arresting young Nigerians and posting them as Yahoo fraudsters. But the real fraudsters who are within the coffers of government, the real criminals who are using pen to steal from the public treasury, are not being arrested. Most of them are not being arrested, and some who are being, fingered for probing and investigations. It takes years upon years, and before you know it, nobody hears anything about those cases again. So, if we are going to have an anti-graft agency that wants to prioritize Nigeria, wants to prioritize recovering what has been looted from Nigerians, then we need to see that commitment spanning from Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, down to the different heads of the ministries, departments, and agencies of government that are saddled with these responsibilities. So, apart from evaluating the appointees of government, the ministers, Nigerians will also want to see these very key security and anti-graft agency positions also being reviewed. Let's get to see what their activities have been. And another conversation I saw just yesterday was declaration of assets. We've not heard most of the politicians. I've not even come across any of the politicians.
Yes, it was
actually,
barely done.
Declaring their assets. So all of these people who are coming into power, very sensitive positions that people can spend billions to bribe their way through. Have they declared their assets? Do Nigerians know that this is how much these people are worth in asset and liability as at this moment that they are taking over office? So that we can now look back when they are done with their service to Nigeria, how much was their salary? Is their salary commensurate with whatever they have been able to accrue in their bank account, in the account of their partners, their spouses, their children, within the years that they are serving government? So all of these issues just raises a lot of question mark into the possibility of Ahmed Bola Tinubu actually being committed to fighting the war against criminality, the war against insecurity, the war against weak institutions that enables people to steal with reckless abandonment and then still go on doing their normal life.
Yeah, okay, very strong salient point that you have raised there. Of course, we need to look at the technicalities involved that would even allow this to see the light of day. But at this point, we're going to take a pause and go to Daily Spotlights, where we bring you information from the front pages of our national dailies. Stay with us. Yes, welcome back. Of course, we are looking at Daily Spotlight, the front pages of our national dailies. And we're going to head straight. The first paper will be the Nigerian Tribune. As we see here, the big story says Tinubu, Supreme Court hears article, Obi, APM's appeals, October 23rd. We also see here INEC releases statistics on 2023 election, says 891 petitions dismissed or withdrawn, defense polling credibility. Okay, we also see here APC, PDP fight over call for Akeredodo's impeachment. Federal government to close Third Mainland Bridge Saturday and Sunday. NLC accuses Labour Minister of partiality in handling NURTW crisis. I bear no grudge against Diri, says Jixon Bielsa poll. We also see here Ohaneze backs amnesty for gunmen to stop killing and destruction in the southeast. And Tinubu withdraws appointment of 24-year-old as FEMA chairman. Okay, appoints Issa Anlu, All Echebu, 5 others as heads of NOA, and NTA, FRSC, and others are partial. That's what we have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, next up this morning, we're looking at the front page of the Daily Trust. The kicker there says, industries battle for survival as dollar hits 1,155 naira. Of course, companies relocating to Ghana, retrenching textile manufacturers. Employers recommend guided float FX regime. One-way flight ticket may hit 130,000. How to rescue naira. Bureau de Change ex-minister. That story is on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Still on the front page of Daily Trust this morning, we see Kano government flags of foreign postgraduate scholarship for 1,001 students. That story is on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper. Still on the front page of Daily Trust, we see account for 500 billion naira recoveries. Reps tell RMFAC. That story is on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Of course, we also see Kano government flags of foreign postgraduate scholarship for 1,001 students. We see still on the front page of Daily Trust, election 891 of 1,196 petitions dismissed or withdrawn. INEC. That story is on page 10. Tinubu withdraws appointment of 24-year-old as FEMA chair. That story is on page 6. Diphtheria, Kano tops as 15,060 suspected cases recorded in 20 states FCT. We also see Nigeria-Chinese firm signs 2 billion MOUs, Lekki Deep Blue Seaport contract. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning.
We're moving now to Daily Times, and the big story there says Obovori Okowa in Cold War over commissionerships. Sharply disagree over candidates for information and justice. Ibom Air flights to Ghana, beginning of expansion to West African region, says Eno. We also see Ghana warmly welcomes the airline. Tinubu sacks Okechukwu from VO and appoints new helmsmen for many agencies. Page 2 is where you can find details of that. Supreme Court fixes 23rd October to hear Atiku's motion to file fresh evidence. We also see here RMAFC uncovers 50 billion naira revenue unremitted to federal government. We also see here Akpabio tells Tinubu Shetima goes Shetima home truths. Sorry, Akpabio tells Tinubu Shetima home truths. Okay. Last story here says NLC berates Lalong for alleged partisanship, hints at industrial unrest. Those are all the stories that are on the front page of the Daily Times.
Well, to wrap up our daily spotlight this morning, we are heading to the front page of Punch newspaper, and on the front page of Punch, the kicker there says fuel scarcity, NNPCL marketers disagree over supply, excuse spread. You also see the rider there says no supply for NNPCL for over 1 month. Ex-Dapo price hits 605 Itman. Of course, stop panic buying. There is sufficient product. NNPCL assures Nigeria. That story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Israeli Hamas, US, UK. Germany asks citizens to leave Lebanon. That story is on page 8. INEC Defense 2023 poll says 712 petitions dismissed. That's on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. Supreme Court begins article appeals on Monday. That story is on page 2. We also see, still on the front page, resist drug cartels temptation. Mawa tells NDLEA officials. That story is on page 24. President appoints new heads for NTA, NBC, 8 others. That story is on page 8. Sanwo-Olu Abiodun, Dangote bid, Akintola Williams farewell. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of Punch newspaper this morning, and that takes us to the end of Daily Spotlight. But of course, a lot of stories making the rounds this morning. It's about time for us to take a pause and head out to the news brief decks. And when we return, Rise and Shine will continue. Stay with us.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
As we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian Police Force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court, my lord.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord. I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Heads of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses into counting.
Heads of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses into counting.
Heads of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses into counting.
Heads of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses into counting.
Good morning. This is your morning news brief on Spectrum Television, live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. I am Francis Oyima, edit. We begin the news brief with a report that the European Union has said Nigeria is one of the biggest beneficiaries of its education, mobility and cooperation scheme. It also noted that over 2,000 Nigerians benefited from its Erasmus scholarship scheme in the last year. The EU head of international partnership, Jutta Oprielinen, made this known in Abuja during the official launch of its Global Gateway initiative. Away from that, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, says it has noted the appearance of fuel queues in some parts of Lagos and few other locations around the country. The retail management of the NNPC in a statement said the queues are due to reduced depot load quit in Apapa, Lagos over a few days. The NNPC, however, advised motorists to desist from panic buying as distribution will normalize over the next couple of days. It added that the root cause of the queues has since been addressed. We move to the judiciary now, where the Supreme Court has fixed Monday, October 23rd for hearing in the appeal by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, seeking the nullification of President Bola Tinubu's victory at the presidential election. The Apex Court will the same day hear the motion by Atiku seeking to bring fresh evidence to prove that President Bola Tinubu submitted forged certificate to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. And back here, the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly has heard a motion on the unwholesome activities of herdsmen in Ikorekbene Oborokara communities. The calling of the executive to enforce the existing law regulating open grazing in the state. Ikorekbene Oborokara member Jerry Otu, while moving the motion, observed that herdsmen unleashed their cattle to destroy produce of citizens in the area, while continuing to pose a serious threat to the peace and tranquility of the community, especially in the farm areas where cattle destroy farmlands and produce, thereby causing untold hardship to the people living in Ikorewan. Away from that, on the foreign scene, Rishi Sunak will attend talks in Egypt later as fear grows in the region that the conflict in Gaza and Israel could spread. The UK PM promised to stand with Israel as it visits Jerusalem on Thursday and urged Saudi Arabia to support stability in a trip to Riyadh. Reports say in a televised speech, U.S. President Joe Biden pledged to ask Congress for billions of dollars for Israel and Ukraine. He also urged Israeli leaders to learn from U.S. mistakes after the 9/11 attacks and to avoid being blinded by rage as they plan a ground offensive in Gaza. And finally, in sports, Premier League giant Liverpool have joined the transfer pace for Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen as they send scouts to watch the Napoli man during the international period. Osimhen was linked with a move away from Naples in the summer after he enjoyed an impressive 2022-2023 campaign with the Italian side. The Nigerian international netted 26 goals in 32 league appearances to lead Napoli to their first Serie A title in 33 years. We will have details of these stories and more in our news at 12. I am Francis Oyima, aided. Have a wonderful morning and we'll return to the Rise and Shine set. Stay with us.
General, voting for SpectrumTv to improve on the lapses taken into account.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to improve on the lapses taken into account.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine, the Friday edition, and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, we just heard the news brief desk where tidbits of global news was brought to us. Before we went on that desk, we saw certain things happening in the country. The fact that the European Union has said Nigeria is one of the biggest beneficiary of education mobility around the world. We also see that Police Commission has explained why they have decided to recruit repentant thugs into the force. There's a lot of concern with regards to that particular move by the PSC. Let's see how what difference can be made at this time. Of course, there's resurfacing failed queues in Lagos and Abuja, but the NNPC is cautioning against panic buying. Of course, they have again confirmed that we have 30 days worth of petrol availability, sufficiency on ground. Whatever is leading to these artificial scarcity is what the NNPC, they quite can't ascertain to. And we also see the fact that the Supreme Court has fixed a date for the 23rd of October to hear the appeal against Tinubu. Of course, this is Atiku Abubakar versus Tinubu and others. 23rd October is the date. Fingers crossed and everybody waiting for what it is going to be. Of course, one of the biggest good news that we talked about this morning is what is happening in Gabon. We see that the interim president, Oligui Nguema, has said he will be receiving no presidential salary and has also cut down on certain governmental spendings, including the salaries and wages of certain political office holders in the country, just to be able to cushion the reality of things in the day. These are things that we've been asking to happen in Nigeria. How soon will it be Nigeria's turn to tell this kind of tales? We also see the new EFCC boss saying that Nigeria has lost 2.9 trillion naira to procurement scam. I think he's already arrived talking tough. But let's see how better, the EFCC is going to be under his dispensation of leadership. These are more some of the conversations we've had so far on Rise and Shine. At this point, we'll be going straight up to our interview segment where we'll be speaking to two of our guests, looking at, of course, today is the World Statistics Day. What is the role of data in planning, policy formulation, and effective governance? These are some of the things we're going to be looking at. And we also remember that here in Akwa Ibom State on the 2nd of October, the governor had actually released about 1 billion naira for the payment of gratuities and monies owed to retired school teachers. Again, just last week, he released another 1.2 or thereabout billion naira again to still further cushion that debt being owed. But we have, someone who is a spokesperson for the retired primary school teachers. He will be with us on the show this morning. Let's see these two tranches of money that has been released by the state governor. How impactful has it been? Are we making any progress, or is this just media promises that have not gotten to these gratuity, rather these retirees? Of course, we'll be joined by our guest any moment from now.
Of course, we've been joined by Harry Udo, the chairman, Civil Society Organizations. Good morning, Mr. Harry. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Good morning, my brother. Great to be there. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, good morning. I know that you are a strong advocate for good governance, and in our conversations, you've always highlighted the fact that data is very critical to how government can plan. So today is World Statistics Day. Focus is on data and how governments of the world can utilize effective data to plan its programs, its policies, to have the best possible effect on growth and advancement. How does it feel that, there is a day set aside to ensure that government, actually gets to know the value and importance of data?
Yeah, thank you for having me this morning. Data is everything. Data is everything. Without data, you can't make proper decisions. So data is important for effective and efficient decision making. Data is important for you to be able to track progress of the work that you're doing. Data is important for you to be able to know that you have moved from point A to point B progressively. And it is important to be able to also show to citizens that you're doing the right things. Everybody needs data. Data is life, as they say. And so if you don't have data, you can't even measure progress. So when governments say, oh, you know, we've done this in 3 years, people term it as audio because that is just words, because there is no data to back it up. Where were you? Where was the state? Where was the country when you had assumed office? And where is it now? Where is the data to show that? So it is a veritable tool for accountability. And that's why it's very important. And I think that's the reason why the United Nations set out the day to celebrate and to highlight the importance of data and to celebrate statisticians across the world. Because data is needed for every, all civil or society actors. I mean, when I say that, I don't just mean NGOs and civil society organizations. I mean all actors in society. All right. So the government, the followership as well, the citizens, they all need data also to be able to even appraise the government on progress that they've made and what could be done and how effectively they can target specific areas and specific sectors for intervention. So it's that important. It's everything. You cannot measure progress. You cannot say you've taken action when there is no data to show that action has been taken. So that's why it's very important. That's why we have the National Bureau of Statistics every so often reeling out, data on employment status, unemployment status, on consumer price index, and all of those things. It's very important because it gives you trends. It tells you where the challenges are and tells you where you should focus more on. That's how important data is.
Okay, so another issue that we have, Sahari, is the fact that in Nigeria, we seem to not have a very strong base with data collation. We have a very serious problem even knowing what is what and who is who in this country. It's almost like you cannot go to a particular source and reel out data, across board for different kinds of things. So let's talk about the menace of, the lack of data collation in Nigeria and how it is affecting us being able to have real-time numbers for, policy formation and even implementation of some of the things they try to do in the country.
Let's even add to that, fake or lying data, for instance. And so when you take into cognizance the improper data, because there is no scientific, effective way. So you hear things like certain parts of the country are more populated than others. But when you get to those parts, you just find that there are maybe empty, large spans of land. All right, somebody is not doing their work correctly. So the absence of data and the availability of wrong data, it's the debacle that Nigeria is facing and has led Nigeria to where it is today. So it doesn't allow for proper planning and effective targeting, of interventions that would bring benefits. And that's why you see that over the years, government have been saying we'll be doing X, we'll be doing Y, we'll be doing that, but without the necessary results that you need to see. Data would enable you, proper data, scientifically proven or derived data would enable you to intervene appropriately and effectively and know exactly what to do and where to do. So that's the reason why we have governments over the years always say, oh, we've been able to do this, whereas there is no data to provide. And that's why the world is advocating for open data these days, so that let the data be there, let's put it out there, let's know what's happening, who is where, which is the locality that is more populated. Where do we have the larger concentration of vulnerable people, persons with disability and persons that are vulnerable? Where do we have the largest concentration of youth in the country? Where do we have certain skill sets that are preponderant? these are very critical in decision making to take the right decisions by government. So the absence of data, in fact, even our budgeting process is done without the proper data. So it just becomes a projection, that people sit down somewhere to do without going out to get the right data. And that's why it's important. That's why certain states now are trying to put up their bureaus of statistics to be able to provide that data that enables proper planning. It's the absence of it that makes Nigeria look rudderless and been going around in cycles for a while now.
All right, Mr. Harry, there's very salient points you've raised this morning. And it suffices to say that without data, no country can actually be able to implement policies that will be able to, truly affect the livelihood of the people of the country. Now, let's look at the investment in the data sector. It seems Nigeria has been found wanting. How would you propose we go about solving this? And I'll double that question with the state as well. We know that recently His Excellency Governor Pastor Omoyeno announced that the state is going to have its own data agency to actually compute this data as well. So how would you term government investment so far in the area of gathering the right data?
Well, nothing much has really been done besides the intent, say for instance, of the government of Akwa Ibom State to legislate the Bureau of Statistics in the state, which I think is a good thing and highly commendable. We're making that advocacy for a while now. Why? Because of how important data is, statistical data that enables you to plan effectively. I just mentioned the issue of budget. So you find budgets being developed, being contrived without the use of appropriate data. And that's why you find sometimes certain interventions are skewed in certain areas, while certain areas are neglected. And then you find that in the implementation of the budget, which is not even fully implemented at all times over the last 16 years of the government of this state, you would find that there are no results to really show besides the road infrastructure that you find in place. So data is very critical in targeting, for instance, around the issues of agriculture, knowing where to go and what to do in those areas and what the needs are and what the gaps are, because effectiveness is when you are able to target the gaps and to bridge the gaps that are there, then you can get results. It's just like a man who's going to go into business. If he doesn't know by scientifically having a survey, a feasibility study that gives him the right kinds of data to take decisions on, that business is never going to be successful. It's never going to be profitable, because any business that's going to be profitable must leverage on gaps, must be filling a gap. If your business isn't filling a gap, then it's not going to be profitable. The same thing goes, with the use of data and the management of the resources of the state in looking to make results from that is causing benefits of governance to trickle down to the citizenry. Without the proper use of data, you won't get that. So what we expect the government to do is to invest more. We aren't investing right now as we should, to getting both the gadgets, the right personnel, and giving them the ambits to be able to provide, real-time data at all times. It will enable. Look at the issue of palliative and the issue of money, conditional cash transfers. Yes. Look at that. The question now is, how did you derive the beneficiaries? I hear people say, just go to the rural, everybody knows who is poor. It doesn't make sense. Will those people remain poor forever? You need to have, a social register that is, scientifically derived, and that data will help with planning and progression. And so that after 5 years, after 2 years, you can say these guys who were at this level have been able to move to this level. That's how important data is, because it can show you progress when it's done properly. And so that's why we need to encourage government to invest in data collection. It's very important to do that. It's not a cheap thing. I remember when ExxonMobil reached out through the highest level to say, look, we see how we can be able to establish a social register in the state. Upon the preliminary survey, we've got back to them to say, look, we need the government to be part of that process, because it's not a $100 million project. It's a huge project that can run into multiple millions to billions. All right. For you to be able to, first of all, establish that process, because the gadgets that you use, the GPS systems and all of that would need to be in place so that you can show exactly where what is and where who is, and be able to gather that data online real time and be able to track the progress. And Brazil has been able to do that. And that's why their conditional money transfer has shown progress, and I've seen people elevated from poverty, from below the poverty line to the poverty, to be at the just above the poverty line, and to show progression from there towards prosperity and wealth creation. So, but we are not doing that here. We don't have that in place, and we need to really invest a lot in that area. And let's commend the intent of the governor of Akwa Ibom State for even giving his feet. The last administration didn't want to hear anything about that, the issue of statistics, bureau statistics in the state.
Okay.
So even while the law had been passed by the House of Assembly, that governor didn't assent to it. He had to go back to the Assembly, and I'm hoping this governor has assented to that to ensure that we have the various statistics that will provide the right information. So when you look at, for instance, in the state, looking at the Arise agenda, the right statistical data will help proper intervention and will help. So we're talking about enterprise development and incubator center services. You need data to be able to, determine who benefits what and where and when and in what area to look at. We don't have that kind of statistics in the state right now. We rely on the National Bureau of Statistics, and then the government will say, oh, it's politically skewed.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly very true. But that will be the argument. That's why you need to have your own data and hope that it won't also be politically skewed. But data do not lie. It's how you use data that could be, one way or the other. But data is data, and it's very important for us.
Okay, so let's look at statistics or data education. I know that everything stems from the foundation. If we do not educate people, because I remember in the course of your speech this morning, you have talked about manpower for even getting data, generating data. So let's look at how statistics is done at the university level. Are we doing enough to make sure that in the next couple of years, as we attempt to catch up with how statistics is running the world over, that Nigeria will be able to have people that are equipped with adequate knowledge and willingness to get the work done? Because sometimes when we are talking about data generation, we are going to be literally going into loopholes and the hinterlands to be able to generate these numbers. It's going to affect our census, it's going to affect our healthcare, it's going to affect everything. So just talk about education with regards to statistics and data generation. How can we improve upon that?
When you look at education system, you would find that there's a lot that needs to be done in that area. Okay, and we need to be able to rework our curriculum and capacitate our professors, our lecturers, to be able to transfer our current knowledge. The world has moved. COVID-19 opened up the world to a level of greatness that was not imagined before. Where the world has become a global village suddenly, and everything is happening. What's happening in Ukraine is affecting Nigeria, and what's happening in Israel now has an impact on Nigeria in real time. So for me, the entire education curriculum needs to be looked at. How statistics is taught, has to be upgraded. All right. So it's very important that we look at that critically. Without that, we'll still have people who have been produced who will not be effective, who have to, if interested, learn the ropes all over what the current status is. And that's the thing for our education system. All of our curriculum needs to be looked at. There are certain courses you shouldn't be reading anymore at this age. But you'll find that still being offered in our universities. So there's not been that rethink of what it is. For instance, today in the developed world, you find that critical thinking has become a course for people to go read. And those guys will make more impact, will be creative, innovative in their ways than those who have gone to read, for instance, engineering. Because creative thinkers will tell the engineers what to create and how to go about being innovative. Innovation is the world today, and data is not left out in that regard. All right, so we need to be able to equip our students very well. We need to look at the curriculum, what is being taught in universities. We aren't doing that right now, and not just about statistics. It's about every other course, and especially the ones that are relevant for the market today.
Those are really, really strong points that you have raised this morning. The fact that certain courses that we are doing in our schools are obsolete and are not in tandem with the changing times. We do hope that the minders of our systems, you know, that are listening to you this morning and they can update on what we are learning in our schools. Well, we've been speaking with Harry Udo this morning, looking at how statistics affect our, you know, day-to-day, you know, policy formation, implementation, and effective governance in the country. Of course, we know that Nigeria seems to lag behind where statistics is concerned. We'd like for you to just wrap up this morning so that we can let you go. We know you have a very tight schedule. But in your final words, with regards to statistics and the role that it plays in planning, just let us know your final words. And when we're even talking planning, Sahari, flooding is also a serious issue. The Meteorological Agency had sent out warnings since January of this year. We know that we do not have, you know, enough data on ground to even tell us where and what we should be addressing. So it looks like people are beginning to run helter-skelter again, although we had been forewarned at the beginning of the year. So give us your final words with regards to how we can actually make headway with regards to statistics in Nigeria.
Yeah, the final word on this here and now, because you can't have a final word on the issue around statistics. But for this show, my thought would be, number one, you know, government must make every effort to ensure that objective data is made available. Number two, the reason why people doubt government is because whatever data they spew out oftentimes aren't exactly correct and not scientifically derived and can't be scientifically supported and won't be able to stand the test of scientific verification, you know, and auditing, if you may. And so people then tend to doubt those statistics. So when, for instance, the Meteorological Society puts out, you know, an information, there is that doubt. And where there is that doubt, the consequence is that some citizens would have to pay the supreme sacrifice for that, or the loss of property, you know, for that, and that would have terrible adverse effects on the economy, on the social well-being of citizens in the country. So it's very important that we have objective data at all times. And so we are encouraging government once again to ensure that they do that, invest in ensuring that there is online real-time data available for persons. And when that data is put out, it should be available, just like the Bureau of Statistics have done. And often we show you how they arrived, the methodology by which they arrived at those data is very important, so that we don't have spurious data being spewed out, you know, by agencies of government, especially at the subnational level, where the heads of the subnational entities can be very autocratic and, you know, act in ways that would make the staff of the agency for statistics, you know, to skew things in their favor. It's very important that when we begin to generate data, statistical data at the subnational level, it must be such that it's objective and believable, and that would enable citizens to take the right actions and even increase investment. If you have the right data, persons who can read that will tell you, this is what we are going to do. This is a business opportunity here. because of the availability of data, because we can trust that the statistics that tells you about the youth population is correct. And so if we're going to target youth population, we're going to be able to break even, in minimum time. That's how important data is to take decisions of all kinds, whether it's for education, whether it's for business, or whether it's for financial intervention, or even some social intervention. It's very important that we have the right sets of data in place, online, real time.
Online real time. It will be very, very important. Thank you so much, Mr. Harry Udor, for coming on the show this morning. Of course, some of the very strong voices that we have in civil society conversations with the federal government and the state government. Oh, I should even ask, Sir Harry, how is the new administration in Akwa Ibom and even Nigeria embracing the voices of civil society organizations? I know that in some parts of the country and even in the states, you people had a problem penetrating, with your voices. How is it in this new administration?
Well, for the state, Akwa Ibom State, we've done a formal letter requesting audience with His Excellency the Governor. We're yet to get a response. But we can also say at the initial, at this early stage, that it seems like this present government will be ready to listen. We're just waiting to get that response. I'm told that it's been quite busy moving about and all of that, but we should have a little patience. But in some states, government decisions aren't taken, without civil society organizations being consulted. Budgets are not derived without the active participation of civil society. But we are having that in Akwa Ibom State now, where we receive, call circulars for budget preparation, and we see the guidelines, and we mobilize citizens' inputs into the budget, which is a good thing. And we commend this government. This year alone, we'll be able to in this current government and in the current budget process, we're able to, as civil society, lead communities to bring over 75 projects into the budget for consideration. And so that in itself is a major step. What we are asking for now, that the consultation should be elaborate enough for the Commissioner for Economic Development and other relevant entities to move, to local governments or to federal concerning level or even at senatorial level to have that wide consultation. It should be a little bit more deep and elaborate, where there are, hierarchy of needs determined at such fora, and so that the government would know exactly where the shoe pinches the citizens. If you make a budget that does not affect the citizens, then you've not done anything. And that's why you find citizens being resentful and unhappy with government. So that's at the subnational level. At the federal level, we are engaging. We are engaging. In another week, I'll be there. A month ago, we were with legislators in Lagos discussing. We are having constant consultations with them. In another week, we'll be there to meet a couple of committees, to discuss issues around human rights and some other issues, related issues. So that engagement is on. And the reason why we have America being America is because of the robustness of the robust participation of civil society in every sphere of life in America. And that's why you have America being what it is and being the democracy that the rest of the world are looking to. I'm hoping that we can have that kind of situation here in the country. Our citizens' participation is critical for development. And that's why you have the nations talking about open government partnership, where citizens are enabled and to participate, where the principles of participation, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability, co-creation are part of what enables government to make progress. In Akwa Ibom State, we are yet to sign on to the open government partnership. We've shouted our voices hoarse. We are hoping that this administration will listen to us and be able to sign on to the open government partnership and create the co-creation entity that will enable us to move together as we go. Kaduna State, recently, if you look at the State of States report, Kaduna State is up there in terms of good governance, and from that state's report by budget.
Is that under Ubasani? Is this achievement under Ubasani, or it was done from when the former governor?
It couldn't be. It's a progress. It's progress from the former governor of the state. You know, he was the first governor to sign on to open government partnership, and that opened them, Kaduna State, up to having resources beyond the federal allocation, resources from development partner and bilateral resources that accrue to states and countries that sign on, to open government partnership. Okay. So that's quite critical. It's not just Ubasani, it's from the time of El-Rufai. You may not like the diminutive El-Rufai, but when it came to the issues of governance and the principles of governance, he didn't fail in that regard. I mean, you might fault him in many other things, but when it came to the issues of open government partnership, you couldn't really fault him. And it was the star boy for open government as it were.
It's good to know that we are making progress in Nigeria in certain aspects of governance. We would have taken you on another subject, but we'll definitely make sure that we bring you next week. We have seen what our neighbors in Gabon are doing with regards to the interim president slashing and saying he's not taking salaries, something we've been clamoring for in Nigeria. We're out of time, but we'll definitely have that conversation with you next week. Thank you very much, Harry Udo, Chairman, Civil Society Organizations, Akwa Ibom State. Thank you for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Do enjoy the rest of your day. It's been a robust conversation here on Rise and Shine. Thank you for being a part of this show. From Monday through Friday, you have been the reason why we have succeeded at what we do. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for feedback. Thank you for sharing your concerns with us. Of course, until we come back on your screens next week, Monday, my name remains Uyai Anyeka. Make sure you stay well in this country. Nigeria belongs to all of us, and it is imperative that we put our hands on deck, provide the information that you must, do the work that you must, and let us move this country forward in all that we are doing. Let's keep hope alive and all will be well. My name is Uyai Anyeka, and let's see you again next week. Bye-bye for now.